Metal Jesus, I'm back again to show you some of the games that I've added to my collection over the last couple months. Now there's over 30 games that I'm going to show you here, including the gameplay footage, and that is spread over 12 different consoles. So there's a lot of really cool stuff here. I also thought it might be kind of fun to, at the end of this video, show you some of the highlights of my music collection that I've acquired over the last, I don't know, 20 or 30 years. And just a few albums that I thought, you know, people would find interesting. So, all right, let's get to it. To start things off, I thought it might be kind of fun to show a donation that I got from a fan from my channel, and his name's Jonathan Carter, and he gave me some really cool stuff, including this game I'd never heard of before called The Legend of the Mystical Ninja. Now, a game that has a title like that, I might skip because it just sounds kind of bizarre. But it turns out that this is a really cool game, and I had a ton of fun just capturing the footage, and I barely even scratched the surface of this game. And it turns out it's actually pretty highly sought after. This is complete in the box, in fantastic condition. And so I want to thank you, Jonathan, for sending that. But that's not all. He also sent a copy of Terry Pratchett's Discworld for the PlayStation 1. And it's pretty funny because Drunken Master Paul came over to my house, and he is a rabid Terry Pratchett fan. He actually reads these books, I think, just about every year. And so when he saw this game, and he just practically just leaped over, he just leapt over the couch, and he basically let me know that this is his game and he's going to review it. So I think that'll be really fun. That'll be a cool video. Switching gears a little bit, for the PlayStation 3, I picked up the Tomb Raider trilogy. Pretty excited to get this. I really like these HD remasters that they're releasing. This is the first one I got, and I plan to get the Splinter Cell one, probably the Metal Gear Solid one. I'm definitely going to be getting the Ratchet and Clank one in the fall. So this is cool to own. Started playing the first game and loved it, and started playing Underworld, which is the newer one, another great game. Kind of a neat find that I found today at Goodwill was a console I've been looking for quite a while, and that is the Atari 2600 Junior. I believe this is the last model of 2600 that they ever released. It's kind of modeled after maybe the 5200, the 7800. It's got that sort of unique black style to it. Very cool, very compact. I've been wanting one of these for a while. The only bummer was I couldn't find the power for it, so I don't have a power brick. But I'm hoping that I can find one fairly easily, but it's cool to own this in my collection now. Switching now to the original Xbox, I picked up a couple games for that, including Pinball Hall of Fame. And there's just been a lot of talk on YouTube, especially in some of the channels that I subscribe to, about pinball. And so I've been kind of getting into it lately. I don't have a real strong desire to own my own pinball machine just because it sounds like so much work. I mean, it's pretty cool that people do that, but I'm content to just get games that emulate them. And so I've been starting to collect them a little bit and played some of this, and it's pretty cool. So I had a lot of fun playing Pinball Hall of Fame. And then I also picked up, I don't know why, I don't even know if this game's any good, but the Family Guy video game. I'm a fan of Family Guy, and this seemed like a pretty cool find. Again, I don't think I paid very much for it, and I hope it's decent. I heard that it can be pretty tough though. Recently, I added a couple Game Boy Advance games to my collection, and I'm going to start here with F-Zero Maximum Velocity. This game reminds me an awful lot of F-Zero on the Super Nintendo. Kind of fun to own this. I play these not actually on a Game Boy Advance, but on the Game Boy Advance player for the GameCube. And so that way I can play them on a big screen, and it's pretty fun to own that. Kind of cool find. Another one that I found is Gunstar Heroes. It's hard to read this. Something, oh, Gunstar Superheroes, there we go. The writing's really small. A treasure game, and I'm a big fan of treasure, and this was cool to find. Now I found this game, and I don't know what to think of it yet, but it's Hot Wheels Velocity X, I believe. I just picked it up on a whim. It was really cheap, and it's a racing game. Kind of reminds me of RC Pro-Am a little bit, but maybe shittier. So who knows? I don't know if I'll play it a lot, but you tell me if you think it's good. Here's a game I found that I was pretty excited about called Iridion 3D. And this is pretty cool because it has pre-rendered backgrounds for the graphics, I guess is what you say. Kind of reminds me of a little bit of Panzer Dragoon because it's on rails. It's a shooter on rails. And pretty impressive for the Game Boy Advance. And I can't wait to play a little bit more of this. And then I picked up James Pond, codename RoboCod. And it's complete in the box and didn't pay a lot for it, but the James Pond games are pretty cool platformers. They're very colorful, they control really well, and I'm actually becoming a big fan of them. And I kind of feel like they're a little bit underrated, and that's okay with me because that means I can get them cheap. And I think this is the last James Pond game that I need, and really cool to own this. I added a stack of Sega Genesis games to my collection recently. I just seem to be finding them out in the wild. And anytime I find one in its case, I just kind of have to snag it, including a role-playing game I've been looking for quite a while, and that is the Genesis version of Shadowrun. And I have the Super Nintendo version, and now I have this version right here. And I've heard that they both kind of complement each other really well. One of the versions, I guess, has better graphics. The other one has maybe a better story or maybe better game mechanics. But now that I own both, that's pretty cool. The Shadowrun RPG series is always one of my favorites. It's so cool. It's a futuristic kind of cyberpunk and takes place in Seattle. So what's not to love, right? I also found a cheap copy of Goofy's Hysterical History Tour. No idea if this was any good. Played it a little bit, and actually I think it's kind of fun. It seems like the Disney platformers on the Genesis were just really well made, and so anytime I see these in the wild, I just have to snag it. And this is in great condition, and it's beautiful, so really fun to own that. I also got a loose copy of Dynamite Headdy, and this game is awesome. I played this quite a bit, and I love it a lot. This might be one of my favorite Genesis games, and it's just excellent. I really, really love this game. Just today I was in a Goodwill and I found some cheap Genesis games. I don't know if they're any good or not. This one looks pretty bad. It's called The Last Battle, and it looks like a beat 'em up, maybe a side-scrolling beat 'em up. It reminds me of, remember that game Kung Fu Master on the original NES? Kind of reminds me of that, and maybe it gets better. I don't know. I wasn't completely blown away by it, but I only paid a couple dollars. Here's another game I found called Tyrants Fight Through Time. This seems like an interesting kind of SimCity sort of game. It looks like it's a turn-based strategy game. So these are kind of unique and interesting on consoles. I don't know if it plays really well, but yeah, it's pretty cool. And like I said, I only paid $2 for it. And then a basketball game, and I'm not a big sports fan, but this one looks like you fight in it, so this seemed pretty cool to me, called Arch Rivals. And it looks a little bit over the top and kind of silly, and again, $2, so I'll take a chance on a game if I haven't heard of it for $2. And who knows if this is any good, but hey, if you get to fight, that sounds pretty fun. Bruiser the Pug. Can I pet you? Bruiser the Pug. Bruiser the Pug. My buddy Matt over evilavatar.com was thinking about me the other day. He saw the video where Paul and John and I play Typing of the Dead during one of our videos. And he saw this and immediately thought of me. It's for the Xbox 360 called Rock of the Dead. And I guess this game uses your Rock Band or your Guitar Hero controllers, and you battle zombies in like little mini games or something like that. It just seems really weird and totally something I would do. He sent in the email, he was like, have a gamer night, drink lots of beer, and play Rock of the Dead, and I absolutely intend to do that. I guess it stars music from Rob Zombie, and it has Neil Patrick Harris, always a good thing, and Felicia Day, so pretty cool. Thanks, Matt. I was recently rummaging through a record store looking for actual vinyl, and happened to look down, and in this bin they had some really old PC games. And they had 2 titles in here. I just never see these in the wild anymore, so I bought them, and they were only $2 a piece. And I thought that was pretty cool. They're in perfect condition. Now, these are really old school games. The Pawn by Rainbird. Now, these were text adventure games that also included really beautiful artwork. And if you're an old school gamer like me, you remember just how stunning these games were at the time. They were like art. They were beautiful. And these are in perfect condition. I got the Pawn, and I also got the Guild of Thieves. And the boxes are really sturdy. The stuff on the inside, all the packaging is in great condition. And they're for the Atari ST, which I don't have an Atari ST, but I played these on the Commodore 64 back in the day and just absolutely love them. So it's one of those things where, you know, obviously I'm never going to play these things probably, but it's cool to own because, again, you just don't see them very often anymore. I recently did a trade with my good buddy, the immortal John Hancock. I have a Pong unit that he didn't have, and he's trying to collect 100 different Pong units. So we did a trade. I gave him that, and he gave me the black metal version of the Intellivision 3. And he gave me this because my original Intellivision is kind of flaky. And, you know, consoles this old, they tend to be flaky. And so he had this one, and he thought it was, you know, it was in black, so it's perfect for the Metal Jesus. And I was very happy to get this. It works perfectly. And thank you, John. I appreciate that. Now I can play some Intellivision games. Now, speaking of Intellivision, Kevin from Alberta, Canada, a fan of my channel, offered to send me some games, including Armor Battle for the Intellivision. Now, this is their take on combat on the Atari 2600. Played a little bit of this, and actually it's pretty cool. So I think Drunken Master Paul and I are gonna be battling it out in this game. He also sent me Tron Deadly Discs. Again, these are complete in the box. And I didn't own this. It's cool to have it. And he also sent me Night Stalker. And I think what's really cool about this box is that it's also in French, because Canadians sometimes speak French. And he included a couple Sega Master System games, including Double Dragon. I love me some Sega Master System, so this is fun. And he included Shooting Gallery. Now, I tried to play this game, and I think it's because I don't have a light gun, because I could not get it to work. So a light gun will be coming in my future. I'll be looking for one of those. Oh yeah, and I also added a couple of my own Intellivision games that I found, including the classic Activision game Pitfall. And it's very similar to the Atari 2600 version. The visuals are not quite as colorful, but it plays very similar. It actually uses 2 buttons instead of just 1. So you do a button to jump, and then you do a button to let go of the vine. But other than that, it's very, very similar. Now, an Intellivision game that's really different from the 2600 is Demon Attack. This game looks and feels quite different to that classic version. I used to love Demon Attack on the 2600, so it's kind of weird for me to see how different this one is. It's almost like it's made by a completely different company. I don't know, bizarre. I picked up one lone game on the TurboGrafx. I just happened to find it out in the wild, and that is Silent Debuggers. I don't know anything about this game other than it looks kind of like a first-person dungeon crawl, almost like maybe Eye of the Beholder or something like that, but it's in space. So I don't know. I don't know if it's any good or not, but I saw it and it was fairly cheap. And you know, anytime I run into a TurboGrafx game, I just have to buy it because they're getting harder and harder to find. Lately, I've been adding a couple Sega CD games, and I saw this one. It's by Dynamix, and this was a pretty cool game on the PC, and so I had to get this on the Sega CD. Rise of the Dragon. I love this game when I worked at Sierra. It's just a really cool cyberpunk universe. It kind of reminds me of Snatcher and also Blade Runner, and so it fits really well into that genre, and it's pretty cool. And I also, let's see here, this is the comic, which is pretty cool, and the documentation, and in here is also, dun, 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 the hint guide, which I think can be pretty tough to find. And so this is the hint guide specifically for the Sega CD. So that's a pretty cool little find there. 2 more games I added to the Sega CD. Earthworm Jim Special Edition. Again, when I found this out in the wild and it was fairly cheap and I just had to have it. I love Earthworm Jim. The animation's killer, and I have no idea if this is comparable to the other classic versions, but I don't know. If you find it for a couple bucks, it seems like it's a good deal. And then finally, BC Racers. This looks like a fairly, I don't know if this game's any good or not. I played a little bit to capture footage, and it kind of reminds me of Mario Kart and like maybe Road Rash, because you punch people as you go past them. So I don't know if it's any good or not, but it's still cool to own. So those are the games that I added to my collection, but I thought it might be kind of fun to take just a couple minutes here and talk about some of my more interesting or unique music that I've added over the years. And the first one I'm going to start off with is a double CD by Soundgarden. This is the original release of Badmotorfinger. Now you may be asking yourself, what's the big deal about this? Well, that's because for a very short time, this actually came with 2 CDs. And so on the inside, there's this little EP in there that's actually really awesome. They do a cover of a Black Sabbath tune. They do a cover of Girl You Want from Devo. They even cover, what else is on here? She's a Politician. They do a live version of Slaves and Bulldozers. It's actually pretty cool and kind of hard to find now. Now here's a total gem from the mid-90s. If you are into bands like Ministry or some of the more rockin' elements of Nine Inch Nails, definitely check out Shotgun Messiah, Violent New Breed. I don't know if anybody bought this album other than me, but it's fantastic. It's really rockin', really well made, and I don't know, it's just such a little gem from the 90s that more people need to know about this album. Shotgun Messiah, definitely check this out. And then finally, I wanted to talk about an album that I've had for a long time. Again, I think this is a mid-90s band, and it's called Karma to Burn, Wild Wonderful Purgatory. This is pretty cool because it's kind of a mix of stoner rock and AC/DC, but the thing is, this is entirely instrumental. So it's very riff heavy, very catchy. This is the perfect soundtrack music to put on your Xbox 360 whenever you're playing racing games, maybe sports games, things like that, like Tony Hawk or whatever. This is a really cool album that not a lot of people know about, and more people should. So that's everything I want to show you for this video. And again, I want to thank the people that generously donated to my collection. I really appreciate it. You guys are absolutely awesome. Your games have come to a good home, and I will take care of them. As always, I want to thank you for watching my channel, and thank you for subscribing. Take care.